Here we go on another episode of Rethink Real Estate. And today, it's a topic that obviously is getting a lot of attention at the moment. I've got Aaron Hodson, who is the CEO and founder of Sellwell. And Aaron gets to experience agents all over the country in high volumes. I believe they have over 4,000 members in Sellwell now. And we're talking about the buyer side commission side of the business. You know, buyer side presentations. We're going to talk about the ways that people are submitting offers, or the way they are going to be thinking about submitting offers. Again, keep in mind is that anything that we go through today is not indicative of the way that your rules and legislation might be for your particular marketplace itself. Aaron and I are simply sharing our opinions on things and maybe some strategies that may or may not work, but you've got to always consult your broker to make sure that you're doing things the right way and in the industry standard. However, that being said, is that a different way to think about things, and just one of those conversations that needs to continue to be had to think about the different strategies and dynamics that we can take to improving or evolving your business with the time. Welcome to Rethink Real Estate. My name is Ben Brady, and this is a real estate podcast aimed to deliver sales strategies, marketing tips, and business insights from industry experts and myself to build a listing-focused business for the future. Let's get into it. Well, Aaron, welcome back to Rethink Real Estate.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me back on. It's nice to get an invite back again.
Please. Mate, you and I have been talking quite a lot at the moment, because not only Sellwell's taken over the onboarding process for the Harcourt's business as well, but I think one of the things with our auction process as well, you and I are fairly connected on all that, because you know, there's a lot of people looking for alternative ways with the change in the market. You know, the primary topic that I want to talk to you about today is the change that you're seeing. You see it across the entire country. I'm seeing it at the moment as well throughout. We've got auctions in about 17 states at the moment. So, you know, people are very, I don't know what the right word is, because it's some are panicked. Others don't care. Others have their head buried in the sand. I don't know what the right terminology. Others are like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity." And when I ask them, "Well, what is the opportunity?" They have no fucking idea how to respond to me.
Yeah.
So, mate, like, what are you seeing?
Well, man, I think the biggest thing that I'm seeing is a bit of a reality check. You know, like, I think we've gone through probably, you know, easily 4 years of the easiest real estate market. Actually, let's say 3. The last 12 months have been a little bit challenging for a lot, but we've been through probably, you know, 2020 to 2023 was probably 3 of the best years we've ever seen in the industry. And, you know, quite honestly, everybody was pretty spoiled. You didn't necessarily have to be that talented to make money in real estate. You know, properties sold themselves, money was cheap, everybody went out there and made some money. And, you know, I think the big consensus that I'm seeing, and like I said, this might not be what everybody wants to hear, is that we're now getting very frustrated that we actually have to justify the amount of money that we earn. I mean, we're in an industry where it's uncapped. You can earn obscene amounts of money if you actually know what you're doing. And where I'm really seeing the biggest challenge is when we challenge people about, you know, what is your actual value as an agent? They can't answer the question. And so, you know, they're all sitting there saying, "Hey, well, we do this, this, and this for the agent, but for the buyer." But you know, I think if we go back probably 10 or 15 years when technology became a big thing, remember the whole conversation about, well, the agent's going to be obsolete now because technology is going to make us, you know, take us out of the marketplace. That didn't. The only thing that's really changed is the value of an agent starts from the minute you put an offer in. The time you actually find the property, when that offer goes in, and how you negotiate that whole thing all the way through to the end is where your foreseeable value is in any transaction, because the consumer can find anything. And so the interesting thing for me and what I'm seeing, there's only one unique skill you need as an agent. I mean, you'll always identify the best agents. They've got the ability to negotiate challenges, good, the bad, the ugly. They've got the ability to negotiate through it. Their skill set isn't in selling a home. A home will sell itself. And ironically, Ben, we're in a situation now where you've actually got to negotiate your fee, which is the only talent you needed to have. And now everybody's pissed off, because the one thing you got to negotiate is how you get paid. And funny enough, if that's really frustrating you, maybe we should start having a look at what our true value is as an agent. Because you know, I think the big thing for me is mindset. People are just losing their crap over things that they can't control. They're putting all their energy into the negative media. You know, they're focusing all their energy on stuff they can't control, and nobody's sitting down and actually taking hold of the stuff they can. You know, like, what are my options? What do I actually need to do to change my business? And I think people are just resting on hope that this isn't actually a real thing, but it's real. It's happened. It should have happened a long time ago. It's like anything, buddy. You know what happens when people go through change? They freak out because the status quo is a little different. I've actually got to work for a living now. Like, I've got to get out there and actually do something a little bit different. But I'm just seeing a big divide. We've got a ton of agents that have been in front of this thing for 6-8 months doing really, really well. We've got agents getting out of the industry. They just can't handle the pressure. It doesn't line up with their second job that they're doing. Go figure. So a lot of that sort of stuff. But quite honestly, buddy, it's a bigger challenge as you want to make it. Like I said, we've got a lot of people that just attacked it and changed the way they run their business and benefiting greatly. And then others that are just, like I said, burying their head in the sand and trying to find an easy way out of a situation.
I think that there's a couple of things that run through my mind also, mate, that I want to get your thoughts on. First and foremost is a lot of people are panicked about the whole buyer side agreement that they're going to have to sit in front of a buyer and get that thing signed prior to them actually then showing them properties or whatever it may be. Now, full disclaimer is that I'm not as up to speed as what I probably should be in all the individual areas that we operate in. At the end of the day, the reality is that trying to keep up to speed within the markets that we operate in is just, it's too difficult. And that's why we have listing agents on the ground where we are. However, that being said, is that the one thing that really triggers to me is that how is the MLS going to, or how are the governing bodies, so to speak, going to police the fact that you need to have that buyer broker agreement in place prior to showing a home or however that is ultimately meant to work? Because that's what it comes down to me, because in the beginning, I don't know how they're going to police it. First of all, they can't even police the rules that they have in place at the moment. So most of the time, what I think is probably going to be the transition of what happens is that a buyer that that's in your database or that you've got a decent enough relationship, and we'll come back to the relationship element here shortly, is that they're going to go look at a property. They're going to go, hey, Ben, ring, ring, ring. Hey, Ben, I've just seen a property I really like. Or, hey, Ben, I've just seen a property on Zillow that I really like. Like, can we go have a look at it? Or it's got an open this weekend or whatever it may be. Then they're like, oh, hey, can we put an offer in? It's like, oh, yeah. Hey, and by the way, we need to get this signed right now or whatever it is. Or, hey, can we put an offer in? And we put the offer in, the seller goes, yeah, okay. And then, oh, hey, by the way, you need to backdate and sign this. Like that's ultimately where I think that form's going to come into play. Along the way. Now, again, I'm probably saying something that might get me in trouble or whatever it is. I've got no idea whether that's right or wrong. But realistically, the policing element of all of this is going to come down to whether or not this buyer broker agreement is going to be a big deal. Now, now that's a separate issue to the actual fee that a seller is either offering, not offering, or your negotiation of that. There's two negotiations now. Just like you've got to negotiate a listing fee, now you've got to negotiate a buyer side compensation element of that deal. So, mate, what is your thought around the policing element of it?
Well, there was actually a statement that came out a week ago that outlined how this is going to be policed. You'll love this, Ben, because the powers that be have decided that the ability to police it is going to be up to the individual MLSs to decide what they want to do. So basically that technically means there is no policing of it. And really what it's going to come down to is there isn't going to need to be a proof that you've got it. And it'll come down to you bumping into an agent that wants to test you on your ability to have a buyer broker agreement. So there really won't be any policing of it. But I'm going to share something with you that I think is probably going to go somewhere at some point. The whole forcing a buyer to sign a buyer broker agreement, I actually don't think this is going to last. Because, I mean, let's understand this whole lawsuit is that it's an antitrust suit because they feel like people are being forced into doing things. Now, where's the actual antitrust part of this when we get a buyer, finds a property they want to see, and now they're forced into signing a contract with someone they don't know?
Well, mate, you've hit the nail on the head in the sense Colorado actually has just come out, I believe. They came out and said that you don't have to get a buyer broker agreement signed because it goes against, in essence, the
100%. And it's just the fear factor, Ben. It happened really quick, and this is exactly what we need to do. And that was a little bit of a prevention for people shopping for fees and things like that. And the whole issue just comes down to that decoupling. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time now. We split the commission. There's no 6% listing fee anymore. I have my listing fee, then we have our marketing strategy. That involves what sort of compensation we're prepared to offer out on that side. One of the challenges is that the buyer broke comp is going to be negotiable all the way to the end. That's really not going to be said and done until the deal's done. So if you come in with a crappy offer, expect a crappy compensation for it. So I think that's going to be always a bit of a challenge all the way to the end. I think there will come a point pretty quickly where forcing buyer broker agreements to be signed just to view an individual property, that's really going to be more disadvantageous to the buyer than it is to anybody else. So I could see that one disappearing pretty quickly. What I think is going to happen, Ben, and I think this is something that you and I have seen in multiple countries, the whole buyer compensation is just going to be in the offer from here moving forward. It's not going to be advertised. Whatever you think you should be paid, you're going to put it in the offer, and the seller's going to take that into consideration when they accept your offer. The same as every other contingency that goes in, no different to what we look at the style of financing you're using. That's all part of it. And the buyer compensation will be part of that as well. However, I still think 80% of the homes are going to be sold traditionally. There's going to be compensation available, because if you're not offering it, you're paying for it no matter what. Because if you list your property, you're not offering by a comp. I'm reducing my offer by 5%, not 3%, because I know I'm trying to get a deal.
Yeah.
And there's also that representation along the way. And it's just going to be a bumpy 6 months until everybody works out what's right and a few eyes come off it. Because, I mean, it's just another grab for the attorneys. Yeah.
Well, mate, I think that there's another part of this as well. Like, I did a deal the other day just up in Incline Village in Tahoe, and we were $100,000 away from where the seller ultimately wanted to be, and I said that to the agents on the other side of the deal, and I didn't offer any of this up. They're like, oh well, we'll contribute X amount to the sale of the property just to show our commitment that we believe our buyer is really paying market value, blah 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 blah, and they justify. And like, again, that was it. There used to be a time where to ask the other side to contribute to the deal, being the buyer's agent, very taboo, but I've seen more and more of it as the gaps have gotten bigger, because I think that, because Aaron, this episode is going to air pretty quickly because I want this to be relevant for people. But the nature of this is that in the negotiation of all of this is that at the same time that this is happening, where I think that there is being salt poured into a wound, so to speak, market's changing a lot at multiple different price points. I don't care if anybody anybody can challenge me on that, because I see so many different marketplaces at so many different price points that there are some leading indicators to stipulate that I hope this is just a blip on the radar, and I hope that people are distracted because it's summer. Because if they're not, and this is the beginning of something that's going to change, then it's going to be pretty ugly. But that being said, is that maybe I said this to somebody today. They're like, oh, well, when interest rates go down, things will be better. I'm like, well, what if they don't get better? Like that's a pretty bold statement, because inventory levels have risen in most marketplaces above where they previously were prior to COVID. Okay. In some markets, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of markets that still an inventory shortage. But that being said, is that what if interest rates do go down, but there's still a surplus of inventory that ultimately is there? You know, it's that supply and demand thing again. Like, I think that this is all happening at the culmination of a lot of change. And again, trust me, I want to be proven wrong that the marketplace doesn't go to complete custard or bad. Okay. But I think that it's all happening at once.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think it will. I mean, I'm the forever optimist, buddy. You know that. Like, I always think there's going to be something that's going to be great. But I mean, I'll be honest, I made more money in a bad market than ever made in a good one, because I had to work a little bit harder. And, you know, my best year in real estate ever was when interest rates were at their highest and average days on market were 90, because then I had the ability to really market and grow my business. That's a bit more of a business mindset. But we're kind of in the middle of a perfect storm. You know, we've just come out of one of, you know, some of the highest interest rates we've ever seen. Yeah, nothing wrong with the market. We had an affordability issue. We're in an election year. We've got a lot of chaos going on with that. There's a lot of uncertainty going on all around the world, not just in the real estate market. So it has made people just sort of take a backward step. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy road to the end of the year. And I do believe 2025 is going to show a lot of great opportunities. We start to see a little reprieve in the mortgage rates. You know, irrespective of some of those inventory levels getting higher, we're still nationally at a massive shortage, you know, to become what we would call a neutral market. There are certain areas, granted, that are picking up a little bit, but we've got a long way to go before we can even consider that this is going to be a bit of a colossal dump in the market.
But again, I don't think it's a dump. I think it's just it's a change in the way things work. It's normalization. I know we used a lot of that as we came out of COVID. You know, we've normalized things, but it wasn't normal there for a long time. This is normal. Like, I remember the 8 odd years that I was here leading up to COVID, so to speak, is that those markets saw really good times, but they also saw times where average days on market would expand out. And it was a fluctuation of the marketplace consistently in those cyclical times.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just the thing. It's just what we got to get used to in business. Things are always going to change. And like I said, we just had a lot of things happen at once, which kind of became a little bit of pressure for everybody. And, you know, I think one of the downsides of what we went through COVID was, you know, remote workers. So a lot of that force for moving, low interest rates, you know, a lot of things that we didn't have to normally do in a traditional cycle of buying and selling real estate, because we could work from home. We didn't need to move. There was a lot of restrictions. So there's a lot of things that are sort of accumulated together to put us in this little bit of a stalemate. But that's starting to change. I mean, a lot of our consultancy clients are all going back to people coming back into the office now. They're losing culture and production. So we're starting to see things move back in the right direction. I think our industry as a whole is potentially going to change, because, you know, agents are looking for more support, more guidance. And, you know, Exhibit A, what we're dealing with right now, we've probably spoken to close to 2,000 agents alone this week looking for guidance and support, and they're having to go outside of their brokerages to get it because they're getting more confusion than they are support and actually what is going to be the right way to run forward with your business. So they're more worried about what the consequence could be of somebody doing something wrong rather than giving people the solution to go, well, here's something you can go and do that's actually going to help you grow your business. So there's a lot of confusion, and there's the old saying, Ben, half the information is more dangerous than none, and that's exactly where we are. We really don't know exactly where this is going to land, and that always causes a little bit of panic. I do think that we're going to move into 2025 and see a really good market. Interest rates will steady up a little bit. I do see prices coming back a little bit, though.
Sure.
However, that's not doom and gloom. You've gone up 90-something% in the last 3 years, so if it comes back 10 to 15, you're still on a massive win.
Yeah.
I think that needs to happen from an affordability standpoint to get people into homes. And I think that little reset is probably going to do us a lot of good.
Yeah.
I do also think that over the next probably 12 to 18 months, and this is not what buyers agents want to hear, is that there will no longer be 3% commissions on the buy side. That's going to settle down around the 2% range, based on your effort versus, doing it. I mean, historically, the seller, the listing agent does all the marketing, goes out, sources the property. Historically, Ben, they negotiated the buyer's agent fee as well. They did all the work, and then basically more money goes to the buyer's agent. So that'll dynamical shift where listing agents will command their fee, and then buyer's agents are probably going to be settling down more around that 2%. Yeah. However, the one thing I do want to say is that we've been a one-trick pony industry for many, many years. A lot of people take people out, they show them a home, they write up an offer. There's not a lot of variance in what they do. We have to start having options in what and how we do our job. If you're a buyer's agent, what are your different options for supporting a buyer? You're doing one-day buyer broker agreements. Do you have a week? Do you have a month? Do you have a certain location, a zip code? Do you have flexibility in what you do? And then same on the listing side. What are your multiple options for selling property? We have to start giving people choices because we had a little bit of a, for a better choice of words, we had that sort of hands around their throat there for a little while because there was really only one thing you can do. Yeah. I think now with things like the auction and things like longer term listing pros, shorter term listing agreements to really test out the market. I think if we can come up with some different options, it's going to be a pretty good time to be in the market. But this is just flexibility of thinking, and I don't think we've had to do a lot of that for quite some years.
So what would your advice be, mate, to somebody that, they're in a position where they want to be a listing orientated agent? There's no question about it. But I think not being prepared for buyers to come your way is probably something like, I've heard statements come out of people's mouth that, I'm not going to represent buyers anymore. It's too complicated. I don't know. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, hey, congratulations. That's great. Like with being a listing agent, but saying no to a very credible person that wants to purchase and wants you to help them probably would be pretty silly. Or not having a buyer department of your business, I believe, is definitely handing money back. But that being said, is that when somebody wants to sort of develop their value proposition from a buyer side perspective, what is your advice to them to do first, mate? Like what presentation do we put together? What things do they need to work out from a value proposition?
Mate, it's a listing presentation. That's all it is. We're just talking to the person on the other side. And I think we've got to get away from the what we do. And when I talk about that, I mean, I see so many presentations where look at my social platform and look at what I do with this, and I'm a great negotiator, and I can search properties for you. You're just telling me stuff you can do on your own. So properties are pretty easily found. And I think if you really want to be a great buyer's agent, I need to see exactly what you do from the minute I find the home I want to buy. What's your offer negotiation strategy? What's your strategy that you use with a listing agent for finding out what their what their negotiation process is? Are they presenting every offer? Are they counter offering every offer? And then walking them through every step of what you do through an inspection. What happens if there is a challenge? What's the negotiation process around solving that? The shit we actually get paid for. Like that's where the value comes in.
But I love the nuance of that, Hotto. I love the nuance of that. I just had a thought process then, as you bring it up, like one of the first things that I'd spend a great deal of time on sort of refining is, how am I going to find you deals that no one else can find? What is my edge there? My job is to call the primary listing agents within your marketplace on a regular basis that you're looking in, because I know everybody, and I'm going to ask them what they've got coming up, so that then we might be able to get our hands on it before it gets to marketplace. Now, again, that's an oversight. Maybe I can't do that, but even then, I think I've got a system called this, or I've got Real Scout, or whatever it might be, that we're going to log you into. So the moment that goes live on the MLS, you're going to get a notification from me. We're both going to get notifications. We're going to then make sure that we evaluate the property, that it fits into the metrics of what you're looking for immediately. I think that there's that tailoring element of this that we can overemphasize, but realistically we don't, because all of that goes on in the back of your mind,
Yeah.
okay, of what's going to happen. But the thing that I really do love about actually people having to present what they're doing now, Aaron, is that there's no what am I looking for? There's no anonymity in the process anymore, right? There's no hiding behind, oh yeah, no, that's what I do, or whatever it is. When you don't actually have that process documented or whatever, if you're going to promise something, you're going to have to deliver on it. That's why I think that listing site, like, that's why I love auction, because there's a set timeline of accountability for an agent that they have to perform. Pressure. And so do we. Same with a buyer's agent, that if you're going to sit in front of them and you're going to tell them this is going to be the process and sell them on the factor of what it looks like, then that's great. But now there's a part of this that also I look at, and it's like, it's all good and well if that relationship starts from the very beginning. And that's relationship is the word that I want to sort of trigger on at this point. Is that it all goes away if you've been nurturing somebody through your database for a period of time. Again, if you and Justine are looking for a home and I've been in communication for you, or I meet you at an open house 2 years ago, but I've been in communication, you go, hey Ben, we're probably going to make a decision here to buy here shortly somewhere else, or whatever it may be, is that it's a pretty simple conversation. No problem. Aaron, here's the agreement. Let's just quickly sit down and talk about what you're looking for. You know, like, I think that relationship element is the same as you try to achieve on the listing side of things.
Yeah. I mean, two things I want to say when you talk about that. I mean, you and I have built careers around relationships, buddy. I mean, you know, a lot of our success has been based around our wonderful personalities, but not so much skill. But the truth behind it is there's two things that I really emphasize with that. And the first thing that we're really emphasizing with everybody, and this is the part that's really hard for most people to stomach, is we've been in a tell me market for so many years. You tell me every story you want to hear, and it's whether the person believes you or not. And the tell me side of things is gone. We're in a show me market now. If you can't show me what makes you different, like, show me exactly what your breakdown of your follow-up processes, your plans, your communication, your strategy around negotiation. If you can't show me what that looks like, it's just another story. That could be a byproduct of social media, because we know 99% of it's rubbish. It's just hype. And I think we've all got a good story to tell, but it takes a real brave person to better show somebody that detail. You know, something that we rolled out a while ago was our commitment. And it's actually a letter and a contract that we have all our students, they sign with their sellers going, this is my commitment to service to you, commitment to service, not to result, about the certain things that you'll do through the entire process. If I don't do it, you have the ability to get away from it. You can cancel my agreement and move on. It's amazing how many people go, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, you've just told me that you're not going to do the right thing by the client if you're not prepared to put it in writing what you're going to do to support somebody. So that's a little bit more of the show me side of it. And then something that I've always believed in, and I think, you know, when we think about growth, we always think forward. We always go like, how do I go find more people? How do I go find more bodies? And for me, growth is not about that. And so we have what we call the 80-20 rule, that 80% of all your growth needs to be focused on people you know. That's where your business is going to come from, because 90% of the work's already done. I trust you. I like you. I'm going to believe a lot more of what you say, but I'm also going to share that information with people I know. So I think that dine and dash type of model, where it's just like lead gen, is going to be such a hard thing for people to get into, because you're effectively going through that whole process from start to finish all over again. And it's so hard to build a relationship with someone that's just found you online, is online, just looking for a property. They're not really looking for a commitment. Whereas the 80-20 rule is the only assured way of growing your business. I mean, if you've got a database with 100 people in it, they probably all know someone that's going to buy and sell in the next 12 months. What does your communication look like? What are you actually doing with them? And so our 80-20 rule, 80% of all your growth is focused on people you know. If you want to go get a deal today, you're actually going to go and talk to someone you know to see if they've got a connection for you. You're not going to go and invest another $10,000 in lead gen and get another 800 people that can't afford to buy a home and refuse to sign a buyer broker agreement. It's just really understanding the priority of success in business. And, you know, number one, it's the greatest time management tool you'll ever have. Because I mean, if I just constantly communicate with people, that relationship grows, there's less objections. You know, it's easy for me to sit down and say, hey, Ben, just a regulatory change, not a big issue, but just to view properties now, we've got a simple agreement we've got to sign, makes you uncomfortable. Let's just do it for this property. If you're happy with what we're doing, we can just extend it out. And a lot of it's just having confidence in what you do. You know, I think a lot of people want these agreements because they've got no confidence that they can keep these clients.
Yeah, but also the other part of it, and again, I know we can't talk technically, I think we can't talk numbers, Hotto, but I don't know. But the reality is that, like, also I can just, like, it just this playing out in my mind. And again, this is a predictive thing. Like, this wouldn't work out, but I have a buyer. I'm helping them search. I want to put an offer in, like, Houseman. Great, no problem. No problem. When you write the offer up, I'm assuming you put in there what the compensation you're requesting for your fees. And that's just, again, it's just going to be a negotiation. Oh, no, we're not offering any compensation. They come back, we're not offering any compensation for the property. It's like, okay, well, we'll increase the sale price to X in order to make sure my compensation is included. I'm like, again, like it's just going to be,
or vice versa. We'll reduce it X so that my buyer can actually, I mean, it's either way it's going to come out. I mean, it's been part of the industry for so many years, and all we're really doing is looking at a way of repackaging it. It's still going to be there. It's the decoupling issue because, I mean, it is technically, I mean, the whole technical term behind it was real estate commissions are a success fee.
Yeah.
And if I charge you 6% to sell your home, I'm taking part of that money that you're giving me to give it to someone who's effectively trying to bring the price down. That's where the confusion comes. That's why they want it decoupled. I think it's great. They should be two separate things. It'll be a payment done at close of escrow. But I mean, the reality of it is, I mean, it's always going to be negotiable, always has been, always will be, and it'll just be part of that thing. But we're also going to remember we're in business. And, you know, one of the things we're going to have to be super smart about is, you know, like if I go to a great listing, they're offering 2%, my buyer's ready to close, they're pre-approved, you know, it's a business transaction. Can I do this and just move on to the next one? That might even be the case if it's 1%. What's the client relationship worth to you? Are they going to send you referrals? Is it worth you digging in and doing it? It's like anything in any industry, every now and again, you have to have a sale. And I think we're in one of those markets now where you might have to have a little bit of a summer sale just to get through it. But, you know, for me, I'd always look at it, if I ever had to do a discount, it's just part of my marketing budget to grow my business. Like if I want to retain this client and I really want to build a relationship, I'm going to do what I can to do it. And I think that's just part of life. I mean, I think we've just had it so fixed and firm. It didn't matter what your offer was. You're always going to get your compensation. I mean, you could literally walk into a listing with a buyer, have them massively overpay for it, and you were still going to get your fee. Didn't matter what your job was, what you did. So I think there's a lot more accountability in it now, which I quite like. It's going to be a little tough for others, but, you know, it's just one of those things. As it changes, I think it'll really sort out. You know, it's going to force people into a situation where they've got to make a major change in their business. And if they don't, they're going to be a casualty of the marketplace. And, you know, sometimes that's a necessary thing.
Yeah, I think that the final thing that I want to sort of go through with you is that, are you seeing any type of strategy that people are preparing for to present their offers differently with their buyers, like or listing agents are thinking about it differently going into a listing presentation around the compensation that's going to be available? Because I know for a fact within auction, we're getting a lot of people that are coming into us at the moment, sellers and agents going, oh, well, we want to do this because we don't have to offer a buyer side compensation. I'm like, no, guys, that's not the case. You still need to budget that you may have to spend X amount of percentage if somebody comes with some type of representation. Now, you can say we're not going to pay for representation. However, that said, is that you may run a very good risk of losing that buyer then at that point, because they might feel that you're hiding something or whatever it looks like. Like I am saying that to them is there still has to be the budget that ultimately that is there. Are you seeing anybody with particular approaches for listings or particular approaches they're going to have when they're submitting offers with buyers?
Yeah, so I'm seeing a couple. I mean, we've got a lot of different strategies we're doing with our listing agents now. And I mean, this is going back to the earlier conversation about having options. And, you know, I think flat out just going to a seller, no, you have to pay it, it's part of the deal, is probably the wrong approach. So we've got a couple of different approaches, which is, look, if you don't want to pay a buyer broker fee, that's fine. Can't force you into doing it, but here's my advice. Let's give it a shot for 2 weeks and see what happens. However, the word of warning is this: it's just somebody does come in unrepresented, or if they come in represented, you're going to pay for it no matter what. It's either going to come out of the offer, or if that person's coming unrepresented, they know they're getting a deal and they're going to try and the offer's generally going to be a lot lower. Now, this is not going to account for that 1 or 2% that it just is what it is. But either way, you're going to pay it. But what we need to do is assess the market, because if you're not offering it, you're basically going to eliminate 80% of the buyers in the marketplace that are being represented by an agent. Yep. Actually, I've got a perfect example for you, Ben, and this was about 3-4 months ago. I was sitting on a plane. Actually, it was a bit longer than that, before all this crap started to happen. I was sitting on an airplane, come back from Arizona, and lo and behold, a lady sits beside me, clearly a realtor, you know, the phone on her ear. She goes, I've got a client that's seen the property online. They absolutely love it. Before I show it, what is the commission you're offering? And she goes, and I didn't hear what the other lady said, but clearly wasn't what she wanted to hear. And she goes, well, that's ridiculous. I'm going to tell my client that there's something wrong with the property then, and we will not be viewing it. She made the whole decision based on what she was getting paid. Oh, yeah, no, I had lots of things I wanted to say to her, but it was at the start of the flight, Ben. I didn't want to continue the conversation all the way back to Orange County.
No.
But then I thought that's what fundamentally is flawed with our business. So we've got different options where we say, look, yeah, you can pay the 3% and not offer any buyer broke, but in 2 weeks you need to reassess. If you're not getting the right result, the offers aren't showing, then we're going to need to look at what we're going to allocate from a marketing standpoint. So just taking another phase. The other option is a 4% listing fee, where we have an allocation of 1 that if we have an unrepresented buyer come in, then we have the ability to put them with somebody on our team or in our brokerage, and that 1% will cover them so that they've got representation. If we do have a buyer come in that's not represented, one thing I absolutely swear by is a disclaimer saying that I am not representing you. I'm representing the seller. I've given you all advice to go and seek representation to actually help you with it. So I'm going to step away from being your realtor. And on the other side of it is having the allocation that we have a 3% that we can, potentially use on that side. And that number is going to be assessed based on the offer that we get. So if we get a really, really good offer in and we think that's going to make the net return sheet work for us, we're happy to go ahead and do it. If you come in with a really crappy offer, then your fee is going to be negotiated along with it. Okay, we'll accept your offer, but we're only going to, we're going to reduce it by 2%. So that fee will be negotiated all the way to the end in my mind. And I think that'll always be part of the deal, especially seeing that it's probably going to be potentially part of the offer moving forward, because that's really the only place that you can put it and substantiate it being part of the offer. I think it just all comes down to the options, Ben. But I think where the real challenge is, if we actually find a right way to explain it to sellers, nobody's having a problem with it. Yeah. Like everybody, that the sellers have the same lack of information we do. And, the historic way of our marketplace, it's just marketing. I mean, if you're not throwing it out there, nobody's coming in. I actually made a joke about this morning, but there's absolutely a guaranteed way to get the absolute highest possible price for your home when you put it on the market. And that's to offer 10% on the buy side. Because every single agent that hasn't sold anything in 6 months is going to bring every single person they can into it. It's a joke, but if you actually explain it that way to the seller, they go, okay, makes sense, because it's just the way the industry works. I sympathize with them, go, don't like it, but it's the greatest way to drive the price up. If you don't offer it, you're going to have to deal with it on the other end, which is generally going to hit your net return at the end of the day. Well, I think one thing I am seeing then, just on it quickly on that, is the net sheet's becoming critical, because we've got to focus on the number.
For people to understand where they're sitting, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if we're focusing on list price and not the net return, you're going to miss the boat on that one pretty quickly.
Aaron, this could be just my naivety in this process though, but like I'm sitting here, like one of the things that we do when it comes to listing agreements, and I've always trained on, is that, again, prior to all this happening, is that people are like, well, how do you negotiate commission up front? I say, well, it's 6% subject to negotiation at the time of an acceptable contract. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, well, that's fine. Okay, well, yeah, well, guys, I want to make sure this is a two-way street, that if I get you a number that ultimately, what is your number at a 6% commission? It's this. Okay, great. Okay, but if it's not that, then obviously we're incentivized or performance-based commission structure. It's kind of the same. It's like, secure your listing fee of what you're going to get, and then, hey, let's just see what the offers come in at, and then we can determine, where the compensation sits. If the offer's not good enough and they're asking for too much compensation, then ultimately we need to go back and we need to negotiate that. That is my responsibility to do that for you as your listing agent. You're like, yeah.
And if we don't get paid, Ben. That's the thing. I mean, I think that's part of the deal. Like, if the best offer that you can get in the market means you taking a little less so you can get paid and move on, that's a decision you have to make. And we see a lot of agents go, I'm not reducing my commission. The deal falls over, and they're proud of themselves. But proud of what? You didn't get a paycheck in the first place. You got to upset seller because your ego got in the way of trying to get a paycheck. I mean, real estate's about, and I know this is probably not the right thing to say, but for me, it's a volume-based business. Like, the more deals you make, the more money you're going to have. I mean, if you're hanging on to that one fee or that one commission check and you just don't want to budge on it and you're not getting paid, your ego's getting in the way of growth. And I think that's the part that'll change. And it's just an interesting part of it. But the options that we have, and I mean, this is why I absolutely love the auction, because number one, the best thing about it, everything's done up front.
Yep.
So when you walk in, you're fully engaged, it's fully transparent, you know exactly what you're getting. That removes a lot of the confusion. I mean, I think it'd be foolish not to consider the auction process in this market, because first thing it's going to do is going to draw in every single buyer that thinks they're not going to pay a fee. If you're unrepresented, hey, all the work's done up front. You need to have money. You need to be pre-approved, ready to go. So the actual need for the buyer's agent's probably a little less, but I shouldn't say that, but it is probably a little less than what it would be traditionally. Yeah. So I think that preparation is a big part of it. I can see that becoming more of a listing strategy too, Ben, doing a lot of the sort of prep work up front, similar to what you do in the auction. So if you do get a buyer comes in unrepresented, it sort of is going to speed the process up a little bit more. Yep. So potentially on the listing side, we'll have to do a little bit more. But, I always found in my business, and when I've seen this happen in the past, people would always say to me, look, if I'm going to be representing, dealing with unrepresented buyers, does that mean I'm doing twice as much work for half the amount of money? And I'm going like, well, half the amount of money? I mean, you're still getting paid the same amount. So I'm not quite sure how you work that out.
Yeah.
But if you actually looked at every deal you've ever done, most of the challenge you have is with the buyer's agent on the other side not doing their job right. So I found my conversion ratio went through the roof. I had more control over my buyer. I understood the financing right down to the last detail because I was dealing with the lender. So sometimes it's a big improvement. But from the buy side, the one thing everybody needs to realize is you will no longer be throwing an unqualified buyer in your car and driving around for 9 months hoping they can buy a house. You're going to be sitting there going, what's your pre-qualification status? Where are you at right now? If I can show you a property, are you in a position to buy it? And that's when you've got the ability to negotiate. If somebody came to me and said, look, I'm ready to go. I've got cash. I'm ready to buy a home today. Show me this home and I'm going to buy it. I'm going to be very negotiable because I know I can transact that really quickly. If you're not approved, you've got no idea what you want to buy, then I'm going to sit pretty firm because I'm going to have to go through some time with this. Just making a different assessment before we take things on. Things we should have always done.
Well, mate, I think that, you and I could spend years talking about this topic because ultimately
we have, buddy. We have.
We have. Yeah, but again, we're so aligned with it. But mate, we appreciate your thoughts on Rethink Real Estate. Again, as this progresses and develops, there's no doubt that you'll be jumping back on and letting us know how things are going. But in the meantime, if anybody has any need for Aaron and wanted to reach out to him, I think that it'd be really great to get him to speak to your teams. I think it'd be really great for him to do some consulting work with you individually or on your strategy, your buyer side things, how you're approaching the marketplace, because he gets to see it in so many different places, mate. We appreciate you. So thanks for jumping on for Rethink Real Estate.
Perfect. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
So about 75% of our audience hasn't liked, followed, or subscribed to our podcast. It would mean the world to us, and it would help this podcast more than you know to expand our reach if you were to like, follow, or subscribe on any of the platforms that you're watching or listening on. Thanks again.